By the summer of 1990, the arcade release of TMNT had quickly been established as the gold standard for the beat-em-up genre moving forward. There was no denying Konami had struck gold, as weekend trips to the mall now had a real incentive for partaking in them. Weekend meetups were now a priority during those summer breaks from school, and as the Turtles phenomenon continued to captivate us, so did Konami, the seal of quality you could bet your bottom dollar on. If it wasn't a trip to the corner store, it would be your local diner or department store. They were dropping banger after banger, bringing their winning formula to a city near you. A legendary line of arcade cabinets licensed after our favorite childhood cartoon shows. By the summer of '91, their Turtles were primetime TV, the animated show to watch. With a brilliant cast of mutants, the series constantly found clever ways to reinvent itself. As the arcade renaissance era was quickly approaching, the source material was at an all-time high. The million-dollar question on all our minds was just who or what would make a cameo in the upcoming Turtles sequel. Well, with a show as zany as TMNT, there's really only one scenario that would truly tie it all together. A time-traveling story, of course. Something that could only be pulled off with the perfect cast of characters. Konami now looked to deliver fans the definitive Turtles experience, sending this beloved cast of characters across some of the most decorated time periods depicted throughout history. As it sits right now, this is episode 7 of our Turtles Marathon. Have I really written, recorded, and produced 7 of these already? Well, they do say when you're passionate about what you do, it really isn't work then. This has always been merely a hobby, and hearing many of your thoughts on this series, along with my zany timeline theory, has been a blessing. So I want to say to you all sooner than later, thank you for always lending an ear to my constant gabble. It's one thing to make a YouTube video, it's another to put that effort in and be rewarded. I couldn't have asked for a better community to go through this series with, so again, many thanks fam. Trust me, I know this theory is a lot to follow, but as I break down my memories with Turtles in Time, I will also explain where I believe this particular event fits in, bridging the gap between the original timeline and the one that unfolds across the NES. For those who asked for it, I will be creating a follow-up video of this timeline theory in its entirety, so without any further interruptions, I believe it's time to get in line, traveling back through time, where our Turtle Boys look to shine, as they solve this game's latest crime. Now, I've recently reviewed Turtles 4, going on record stating that it's arguably a near-perfect home port, delivering fans a boatload of additional content that hands down makes it the definitive release. However, keep in mind, this is the OG here, which came out the year prior, so I'm going to take a more comparative approach when factoring in these tangibles. Besides, there's many things that this release does exceptionally well, and having the privilege to live the arcade experience, there's nothing quite like it. As it's strikingly apparent from this game's opener, the presentation throughout is what makes this entry so memorable, treating our ears to a sweet sample of the Coming Out of Their Shells tour. Now, I've said it before and I'll say it again here. These interpretations of our favorite green co-stars is an easy favorite for me. They're oozing with just as much personality as they are green ooze. Their portrayals here are the real deal, as if I'm watching an episode of the animated series. Soon after we pump the first token into this game's coin door, the real debate kicks off. To be more specific, comparatively to its Super NES counterpart. Aesthetically, they both look and feel great to play, granting fans of our Teenage Turtles their signature repertoires, only here, striking down your adversaries is a thing of beauty, as the additional animation frames gives this presentation an added layer of depth. It's the icing on the cake that allows our Turtles to appear so fluid in motion that makes each offensive combination a real thing of beauty. Stack that up against those other arcade offerings from '91, and well, the proof is in the pudding here, folks. With our recent playthrough of Turtles 4 now in the rear view, we arrive back to familiar stomping grounds, as events here on the arcade scene open up similarly to Turtles 4. However, it's more the aftermath of these events that will require our attention, as they surprisingly unfold quite differently. April is hot on the lead of her latest news scoop. Just as she finally gets her moment to shine, shit hits the fan as Krang makes a grand entrance. Muzzling his way in the frame, he sets his sights on Lady Liberty, squaring off with the goddess herself by delivering a giant bear hug that tears the statue right off her foundation. Just then, the airwaves shift to an unspecified location where Shredder proceeds to taunt the good people of Manhattan like a true internet troll. Well, it looked as if someone took the bait, as his antics have now got the Turtles seething from the news report, now looking all hot and bothered, ready to deliver old Shredder another one of those certified TMNT-themed ass whippings. On the surface, things appear to be unfolding similarly as before, only as we continue our march ahead, tiny nuances begin to creep up on you. It's one thing to travel these roads with a buddy, it's a whole different animal leading the charge with a pack of 4, now looking like a band of mercenaries tearing through anything and everything that stands in the way of collecting their bounty. That bounty being Shredder's head on a silver platter. The 4-player co-op feel just hits different, slowly adjusting to each of your comrades' playstyles. As you settle into your new role, scouting the perimeter to pick off a lone foot soldier, there's nothing more satisfying than coming through in the clutch when a brother's in need, preventing an avoidable triple team from potentially rearing its ugly head. It's a Turtles game disguised as a beat-em-up. Wait, what does that even mean? It means this isn't your typical run-of-the-mill button masher. It's a lifestyle choice, the Turtles experience, that finds you working in unison with anyone willing to fight the good fight, talking through each segment and strategizing on the fly to determine who's getting the box of hard knocks or pizza up ahead. Speaking of strategizing on the fly, you quickly send your Turtles airborne, smacking the ugly right-off old Baxter here as he flutters about, looking to crash land below after getting those gnarly wings of his clipped by those quadruple team attacks. The Turtles now regroup, lending their ear to the street as they hit the ground running. It looks like a block party is about to go down here in the neighborhood, as the local roadways have now been blocked off. Well, we can easily fix that, taking back the block while keeping a close eye out for local surveillance, trying to catch us in the act. These definitely aren't made from Dimension X tech, looking more makeshift than any guard bot. I wouldn't really call these upgrades from our favorite Roadkill Rodneys, but it's pretty fun to give them hell with a quick back and forth sparring match. With our latest training session down, it's time for the main event as the latest challenger makes his way into the concrete circle, barreling past the squad looking to throw some wacky action hands. He will stick and move, extending those metallic meat cleavers for a knockout punch. Just as he does, he will whisk off to stay ahead of the numbers game. Snaking his way towards the top of the arena, he delivers a laser light show, picking off each of our heroes with a fiery offense. However, with this 4-man band, old scrappy Metalhead never stood a chance, and he's quickly overtaken by that pig pile of an offense, sending this sucker packing on back to the parts and service center. They say big things come in small packages, and I believe when compared to a far larger home release, this absolutely applies here. There's still nothing quite like the feeling of being in the moment as you crowd around that big old CRT display, sewer surfing with your favorite Ninja Turtle, weaving through the many floating obstacles presented ahead. This game's bread and butter is its audio and visual showcase throughout, flexing that killer arcade circuitry by delivering vivid visuals that make the sprite work pop right off the screen, kinda like a badass comic book panel, you know? The sound is crisp and crystal clear for a far larger script of memorable dialogue and those witty one-liners alike. Where we once were treated to a stage of lovely bonuses to feast upon, we now get swarmed by a nest of sewer pests, as the pizza monsters have recently multiplied in numbers, looking to eat you alive because they got a bone to pick clean with you. Keep that board of yours steady, gang, till you lift off with a devastating aerial strike paired with your trusty Turtles weapon of choice, and you're soon enough exterminate this latest alien brood. Clearing out the sewers below leads our Turtles right into the clutches of Shredder, whom conveniently confronts you in the sewers of all places. Shredder has in fact been waiting patiently behind the scenes, luring the Turtles down into this underground maze, capitalizing on the moment by showcasing his latest discoveries. Moments pass and a mysterious energy source begins to radiate from his helmet, quickly encapsulating our heroes until a tear in the very fabric of space opens up, creating a wormhole that sucks our Turtles through the void, like a black hole spiraling across the very essence of time, transporting them back to the dawn of time. The Turtles soon materialize, just in time for some real Stone Age antics, as an influx of pterodactyl can be seen soaring the skies, dropping on in our favorite batch of acrobatic boneheads. The Foot have deceived the local residents, looking to gain an upper hand with their assistance. The difficulty here quickly spikes, as the newly formed Bedrock Brigade is accompanied by Krang's personal rock soldiers, stationed throughout time to see plans through. By the time you draw your weapon, you feel the pressure as those arcade growing pains settle in with an influx of enemy troops. Trust me, you'll be sending someone on a quarter run soon, because each of our 4 Turtles will be getting a slice of the action. However, it's here we realize we've indeed jumped timelines as a pile of pizza dough slowly forms, bringing forth the massive dough face. He swipes away with those massive paws, throwing that lovely pie crust your way. A true pooflinger, I must say. He'll begin the shapeshift, moving across the floor till the opportunity presents, reforming from the chaos to catch our Turtles off guard. If you're not careful, you're going to get stuck in this freshly made pie crust, allowing him to maul you down in the near moments to come. Your best strategy here is to stick and move, as this blob is quick to retreat. He counters with a much slower offense, allowing you to anticipate his upcoming movesets. He's hella shifty too, so keep a keen eye on those gooey projectiles while scanning the perimeter, and in no time, you will heat things up, torching this sucker till his crust is fully cooked. I'm just playing, y'all. I know this dude is made out of cement. Come on now. There's also nothing quite like navigating the 7 Seas with your trusty arcade stick. It's vastly different than the old faithful D-pad, and at times, your turtles will feel far looser in the control category, as if our turtles became weak in the knees. Who knows, maybe they're seasick. Your handles become a bit more slippery here, losing a good deal of the control Turtles 4 provided, and as a result, your signature setups will take a bit more time to get accustomed to. This can easily wear on your patience, filling you with a sense of uncertainty, especially when attempting this back in the arcade days. You had to make this work on just a couple bucks, and chances were, those bucks were probably your lunch money for school tomorrow. Precision plays a major factor here, along with your wallet. It's always a struggle at first, transitioning from a controller to an arcade stick. It's a bit more challenging at first, but in the long run, it absolutely pays off. I think there's something fascinating about playing through these games back to back, allowing you to see things in a different perspective. The Super NES release is damn good, near perfect, yet playing them back to back, you pick up on tiny details that makes the arcade experience worth another playthrough. These subtle differences come through your interactions with environmental hazards, enemy encounters, or challenges that can play a unique role to that specific stage. Many boss interactions play out slightly different, presenting us with new exchanges between encounters. It's also just really amusing watching these theatrics unfold differently, as each of our foes are bested in battle. Konami never fails to capture the spirit of these classic characters, finding clever new ways to get a hearty chuckle out of me. Some stages throughout this journey will require a different approach, as the early arcade format takes a more traditional side-scrolling approach. Each release offers unique modes of play, dare I say Mode 7, so you begin to have a different outlook on them. Oh look, our favorite sparring partners are back, looking to have made zero improvements here in the future, just cruising back and forth, looking to throw down with those tiny piston-powered punches. Also, playing through Neon Knight Riders, I can't help but to feel robbed. I mean, we are in the year 2025, and we still don't have any of those sweet hoverboards to purchase? Well, I guess we should be thankful. We get what we get, because things are going to speed up regardless, as Super Krang enters the fray, and his arcade counterpart is every bit as supercharged as his hefty moniker proclaims to be. You know the old saying, the bigger they are, the harder they fall. See you in the future, gang. As the Turtles navigate the very essence of time, they look to the future, learning of the world's fate since their absence in present day. It appears Krang was busy in that 100-year gap, sending the Technodrome into the future where he launches his very own version of SpaceX. As you look to correct future events, game mechanics will once again factor in, as differences across releases will affect your performance down the stretch. The foot enforcements are cranked up to the max, praying your turtle will pull off those well-oiled combos, sending these futuristic foot flying. You do a good amount of tossing too at random when the action is triggered, typically during a string of combinations, so stay engaged. Again, it's not a deal breaker, just something you need to get accustomed to, opposed to the luxury of a simple input from the Super NES pad. As Krang swoops in to stop the inevitable, you get into your huddle, ready for a futuristic showdown with the main brain. Although there's this feeling of separation at times with arcade combat, it's made up for in execution, rallying the others together to plan your attacks accordingly, relying more distinctly on your general surroundings in conjunction with enemy movement patterns to tie together an offense. In other words, it's how you approach each fight that's key, requiring you to think 2 steps ahead, factoring in the probability of taking that shell shock to the head. Our turtles are indeed tied to their fate as the space station begins to implode with Krang's defeat, ultimately leaving him marooned from the circumstances of his actions. The turtles don't hesitate, taking to the newly opened wormhole with its destination set to present day, as this flux capacitor reads the year 1991. Our turtles take a leap of faith, traveling across the flow of time as they rematerialize back home atop the Technodrome. It's time to end this. Just you, your brothers, and a lone Shredder. No Hyperstone, no mysterious ooze, no bullshit. Shredder descends down into the battlefield as both parties cut loose, fencing back and forth with their weapon of choice. This is a more traditional encounter with Shredder, where his offense is primarily run through his swordplay and melee attacks. As he draws his blade, it's apparent its forging is not of this world, as if the dude recently came back from a Star Wars convention. That's not saying he hasn't tapped into any dark arts while there, as Shredder possesses a godlike amount of kinetic power that he can bend to his will as needed. Now projected towards our turtles, looking to place a tight grip around our heroes' necks. He will soon levitate throughout the arena, channeling the elements around him as his helmet begins to glow once more, unleashing a powerful energy ray looking to send you back to the prehistoric past for good. Shredder will continue to shuffle through these maneuvers, but thankfully in a constant loop, granting you ample time to telegraph his attacks. Continue your charge, taking the many challenges you've endured across each battle and reenactments throughout this series. As the turtles continue taking turns challenging their longtime rival, their greatest test lies here, staggering the big brute with their strikes, each setting Shredder further back as the chinks in his armor begins to show. Breaking through with one final leap, giving it your all till Shredder takes one too many blows, slamming back against the guardrails where he loses his grip, along with his power, toppling over the side rail and falling into the abyss. History will inevitably repeat itself as the prophecy once told now comes true, retrieving Lady Liberty for a speedy recovery, arriving home where she is placed back atop her throne as the Queen of Manhattan and our symbol of freedom, as you close out one hell of an adventure with your three buddies, one that will be spoken of for years, shared across many friend circles when they too tell the tales of their greatest arcade stories. So, with Turtles in Time coming to a close, I ask you all in its aftermath, does time-traveling stories even work? I've heard mixed opinions, but it's safe to say at one point in time, Konami made it happen. So how exactly then? Well, I think we need to again look back to the events of the Hyperstone heist, when Shredder obtains the Hyperstone, which in return grants him unbelievable power, tapping into his Super Shredder state for the very first time. It's here he manages to shrink the city of Manhattan down into his own personal ant farm. Although Shredder became consumed by the stone's power, its radical effects came to a close along with its story. Or did it? The Hyperstone would ultimately shatter before us, stripping Shredder of his newly found powers, and as the events of the arcade games unfold, he clearly couldn't tap into this state again. Yet, one thing is apparent. We know the Hyperstone was extracted deep inside Dimension X, and although we never hear what would come to be of its shattered remains, one could theorize those fragments are indeed somewhat significant moving forward. More importantly, how do we know its raw energy wasn't released into the ether, or that similarly, elements like this Hyperstone reside within Dimension X? One thing is clear though, as Shredder sends our turtles back in time in the arcade release, he does so using a mysterious power source emitting from within his helmet. The shape of that crystal lodged in the center looks awfully familiar. In addition, the shattered state of the Hyperstone looks very similar to another crystallized energy source we see throughout the events of the animated series. More specifically, the Incredible Shrinking Turtles arc. It wields similar effects to that of the Hyperstone. Isn't it also funny that Cement Man looks oddly familiar too, like another enemy in the story we see in the Blob? Isn't it also ironic how he only shows up in this timeline? Almost as if Cement Man was created with the same power that Shredder harnesses here. We know from the episode itself that the Blob was created when the stone was in possession of Baxter, whom just so happens to be alive and well during the events of the Hyperstone heist. I can only imagine what else it's capable of, like creating a time paradox to send the turtles back in time maybe? Still, how do the events of these two arcade games ultimately tie into the timeline? Clearly Toku and Razar can be seen here, so where is Super Shredder? Well, we in fact did see Super Shredder while wielding the Hyperstone, and let me ask you, how did that work out for him? What if I told you this entire arcade timeline is a direct sequel to the first live-action movie? Stick with me here. The events that unfold in the Hyperstone heist take place directly after the first movie, where throughout the two arcade games, we see Shredder slowly restoring his lost power. Isn't it funny how he now creates Shredder clones out of the blue? What about just randomly creating wormholes to send our turtles back in time? The strange power emanating from the sword he wields? He's also been packing on some significant size too, growing in stature, almost as if the shattered remains of a certain stone are in play here. This almost presents itself as a pre-Super Shredder state. I believe these events occur after the first live-action movie, where Shredder finds himself furthering his research, experimenting with mutagen just like we see in The Secret of the Ooze, only now with Konami's twist on things. This event takes place during The Secret of the Ooze, with the birth of Toku and Razar established, but before the movie's finale, unfolding to a new outcome, With Shredder's latest defeat, he now sends himself back in time with the power of the stone now to the events of NES Turtles 2 Arcade. He knows through his failures what must be done to defeat the Turtles. Deep down, he knows that the combined efforts of his Super Shredder state and his many new mutated creations were still not enough. Therefore, there is no need to use the ooze on himself just yet. He would do so later when the time is right, furthering his studies of the mysterious green ooze. With Krang now in the future, Shredder wields the remaining power of a shattered Hyperstone, traveling back to the past, surrounding himself once again with those whom failed him. Disgusted with Krang, he would now have to work with him long enough to get what he needs to succeed. Thus, they begin building the translocation matrix device. Shredder would now see things through, sitting back long enough to put his plans in motion, continuing to perfect his Super Shredder state over the course of the next 3 games. Eventually, history would in fact repeat itself, finding Krang once again marooned to the future in Turtles 4. As things now fall into place, Shredder puts his final plan in motion, stealing the translocation matrix device and journeying to the perfect moment in space and time, bending reality now to the events of Turtles 1, where prior to our story, he slaughters Krang's race while donning the red attire in his perfected state, which I present to you all as Ultra Shredder. Shredder now rules alone, creating his own perfect timeline, where unbeknownst to him, the original Core 4 would reside, the chosen ones that would defeat Shredder at his full strength, thus bringing this timeline full circle, giving you my personal spin on the Konami timeline. The only thing that could alter these events moving forward would be your own personal spin on things, which I look forward to hearing about in the weeks and months to come, as this timeline theory will not only get its own video, but the closure it needs for the mainline series, as we can now move ahead with the remainder of this marathon, as no stone shall be left unturned, as we got a few more side quests to conquer before these turtles finish their story, next time with TMNT Fall of the Foot Clan. See you there, gang.